Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the special city council meeting. The meeting is called to order, and I'd like to ask our city clerk to please call the roll.
All city council is present.
Thank you. Would you join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for a brief moment of silence afterwards? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So we called a special meeting today to discuss regulating the use of El Cajon lodging establishments for regional homeless solutions. And I'd like to ask our city manager, Graham Mitchell, to tell us about this.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, for over half a year, we've been talking about and dealing with the impacts of the use of El Cajon motels as the county's regional homeless solution. And we have the data. It's obvious. The council's talked about this time and time again, that we have an disproportionate number of folks staying in our community in our motels from outside the area. And in fact, when we did a study earlier, of the 98 individuals that were in the motel, or the 101 individuals in the motel, 98 were from outside the city of El Cajon. So clearly these are not our motels being used to house El Cajon homeless. It's being used to house the region's homeless. One of the concerns is, as you know, over the weekend, we had a horrific assault of a teenager. The police department just released a press release that just came out probably as you were walking to the meeting, that we have identified the victim. We have talked to the victim. She's a 16-year-old young woman, and we'll continue to look for other victims that we believe exist based on testimony we received from individuals. So I guess the question is, if we're not going to do something, I had this perfectly set up. We can go to my PowerPoint, please. So if not now, when are we going to talk about and do something about this? I think between this issue, the shooting that occurred at a motel, also connected to a voucher program, to the sex offender that we arrested another sex offender we arrested over the weekend that was allegedly on a county voucher program through the RHAP program. These are some things that it seems like it's growing and growing and growing. And as a city manager, I completely feel left in the dark when it comes to what's happening in the community. If the city council were to ask me right now how many individuals are staying in El Cajon motels that are homeless, I couldn't tell you. I could make an estimated guess, and I'll show you some data that I have, but I don't know. But the problem that we have is we just see these incidents like we have had over the last weekend, and we think it's just the tip of the iceberg. We think there's so much more going on. We're completely unaware of what's happening. And frankly, it's a shame, and it's inappropriate that our partners in the region are unwilling to completely be transparent with how they're utilizing motels in El Cajon. I do know that we get a weekly update from the County of San Diego on individuals that are housed through the RHAP program. I get crime data all the time. Our chief shares with me and the assistant city manager a crime report. I can attest that a lot of crime is occurring at our motels, and we know that ongoing calls for service continue. This graph shows the county motel voucher program, and specifically the RHAP program. And I'm going to call that out because the county has been very cautious of how to name programs. And you've probably heard a spokesperson recently say that the voucher recipients that were involved in the sexual assaults over the weekend were not part of a county RHAP program, which is true. They were part of another county program. Like the city of El Cajon, the county has more than one homeless program. And so these are just the RHAP participants. As you can see, back in November, we had 112 participants in our motels, that number has grown over time. And in fact, if you look at a monthly average, you can see that we are averaging 114 last November, and now we're up to 130 so far in March, and when we had a full month of February, we were at 131. So this is clearly a program that is not diminishing. It's only going to grow. And so either as staff, we felt we needed to bring some solutions or some options for the city council to consider rather than just sit back and wait to be acted upon. As we were thinking about options, we identified 5 very specific objectives. One is to reduce the negative impacts that motels are having currently in our neighborhoods, to ensure a safe environment, not only for the communities around these motels, but frankly for the motels themselves. We received a call earlier today, and I don't know if this resident feels comfortable talking today. I'm sorry. But her words were haunting, that she felt unsafe for her 13-year-old daughter to stay in a motel in El Cajon. And it's not a safe environment for people staying in motels. Not only just regular travelers, but people that rely on motels for housing, and including people in the county's own voucher program aren't safe in a lot of these situations. And so we want to create an environment that is safe for everybody. I think we also want to figure out a way to reduce the immense strain on our own public safety system. It is ironic, as I was watching just two very short news clips yesterday that were out at Motel 6. And these were not staged. We do not have the staffing resources to stage running calls, but an ambulance ran down to Motel 6, and a few minutes later, a police car ran down. So we are constantly running, and it's not just Motel 6, it's all of the motels we're making tons of calls to. And so we've got to figure out a way to reduce the strain that this program has on our public safety system, because we're not being compensated, we're not being reimbursed by the County of San Diego. I think we also need to just have a better understanding of what's happening. We claim to manage a city, but if you don't know what's happening, it's hard to manage that. And then lastly, we clearly need to address how to protect our residents from registered sex offenders that are currently participating in the program. And if we believe that there weren't any participating before, we couldn't be able to say that after this weekend. So staff has identified 6, and there's a staff report accompanying this. I'll go over these quickly. But 6 opportunities for the city council to think about how you want to address any of these or all of these. But one is you could actually create a condition for any sex offender that is on a voucher, and I think we'll need to define the word voucher because that's can be used loosely, but colloquially, the word voucher. If someone is on a sex offender and they've been placed in an El Cajon motel, they have 10 days until they report to the El Cajon Police Department and register at that local location. 10 days is a very long time, and in fact, we have reason to believe that there may be sex offenders that come into El Cajon and are staying on a voucher for less than 10 days and then being moved to a new location to avoid having to report. So we would recommend one of the options that the council may want to consider is that if someone is on a voucher and is a registered sex offender, they have 2 hours to report, not 10 days to report. And in our mind, that should be, the onus of that should be on the organization, the nonprofit or the contractor that is managing that individual. We also think that it's unconscionable that a sex predator be placed in a motel any less than 2,000 feet away from a school or a licensed daycare. As you know, the Motel 6 is about 1,000 feet away from an elementary school, and hundreds of kids walk by that motel every single day. And it seems like we've created an extremely unsafe environment for our children. We'd also recommend that the city council may want to consider some sort of a 90-day moratorium that would give us an opportunity to reach out and understand really what's happening. It would give us a chance to talk to all the key stakeholders, the County of San Diego, all of their contractors, to get an understanding of what's working, what's not working, how we can assist them, how we can make their program better, and how they can share information with us. And lastly, to develop a more equitable approach to housing solutions in San Diego County so the city of El Cajon is not taking the brunt of the county's homeless problem. The other thing that we would consider is having, once the criminal investigation is done, bringing Motel 6 before the Planning Commission for a hearing to consider their involvement in this crime that occurred and to see if there's any culpability there. We also thought about another set of policy ideas is that we could establish some conditions for participating motels. This does differ significantly from what we were exploring before, where the Attorney General gave us a cease and desist notice. This has nothing to do with what they were concerned about. But I think it's only fair that the city of El Cajon know which motels are participating. It's fair for us to understand how many rooms are being allocated for the voucher program. We believe it's fair to understand which agencies are participating and which programs are participating, because some programs cater to different types of individuals. It's also important for us to know what the room rate's being charged so we can go back and compare that to our transient occupancy taxes as we do our audits to make sure that the city of El Cajon is getting its fair share in TOT. And lastly, we think there's some value in a motel notifying guests that are there that there is a voucher program or homeless sheltering program that operates at that facility. The next to last item that we'd recommend or recommend for city consideration is that we'd require a criminal record search for every individual that is brought into the city of El Cajon as part of a voucher program. We currently do this through Home Start as we provide vouchers through our program. We require a criminal background check to occur. We think that would help us understand who's in our community, how we can mitigate challenges, and frankly, how we can actually help the contractors avoid problems, because we may know things that maybe they don't know because of just intel that we receive. And we think that information sharing is important to our police department. The last thing that we would recommend is that we submit a formal request for an investigation to not only the San Diego County District Attorney's Office, but also the San Diego County Grand Jury of price gouging. I went online this morning to try to book a motel room at Motel 6, and I was able to get a room for $75.99 last minute. But we know that under the contracts, as we've read the contracts, some of these motels are receiving as much as $149 per night. That ends up being over $4,000 a month in rent. It's a very expensive housing program. We think that this is a form of price gouging, and we think that there's an opportunity to investigate, and we'd actually call on our state legislators to consider this. It seems like an awful waste of taxpayer money where we're inflating the price by almost 20 or by 50%, in some cases doubling the price that we're paying for a hotel room because it's a government program. Talk about a $1,000 hammer. So this is a summary of the 7 considerations that we're presenting before the council. I'm sure there's probably a dozen more that you may have thought of, and I thought this would be an opportunity for the council to ask any specific questions that you have about these programs. Of course, today is just an opportunity to provide feedback and give staff some direction. None of these things, except for the investigate price gouging, can happen immediately. All of these things would require staff drafting policy and coming back to the city council under a public hearing. We've also scheduled for this meeting a closed session, so if there are litigation issues or potential exposure to litigation, we can break into closed session and have that conversation before we talk about that openly. So with that, staff's here to answer any questions, and Chief Moulton's here to answer any specific questions about crime issues. Tony Schute's here to answer any specific questions when it comes to land use regulations, and of course, our city attorney's here to answer any legal questions.
Before we get into the questions of the council, I think the public has a huge interest in what happens here today. So I'd like to ask for speaker cards and get public comment done before we bring it back to council.
We have one speaker, sir. It's Faith Sinclair.
Hi, Ms. Sinclair. Come on up. How are you?
In here?
Yeah, you got it.
My name's Faith St. Clair. I'm currently a resident at the Motel 6. My two sons, who are 9 and 7, reside with me currently. I do not qualify for any hotel vouchers. I've gone to Home Start. I've gone to PCG. I make too much money working my 2 jobs as a full-time certified technician at Valvoline and an assistant manager at Eco Laundry on East Main that I don't qualify for food stamps or cash assistance, which means I don't qualify for a lot of the housing or the hotel vouchers until I can get permanent housing. Now, I just got my tax return, and I literally have spent all my tax return for us to be somewhere while it rains so I can maintain my 2 jobs. And now this happens, and my 13-year-old daughter cannot even come to the hotel anymore where we reside because I don't feel safe for her there. I agree with everything that was posted or said today. There needs to be a very stern assessment of the people because it's not only me. My coworker, she's 22. She has a 3-year-old son. We just combined rooms today so we can save money, so we can probably get a place. Because she also is wasting her tax return, and she also doesn't qualify for the hotel vouchers as well. I'm begging for some kind of solution because me and Rachel can't be the only ones. Not to mention, if this is happening inside these hotel rooms, there's an encampment right behind the Motel 6 that is growing. I've been there almost 2 months, and it's gone from 2 people tents to 3 to 5 to 12 people tents. And if these sick acts are happening in the hotel rooms, then I can best bet they're happening in these tents like we dealt with a year ago on Magnolia. I hope that we can come up to some solutions, assessments of the people who are getting these vouchers. Because, yes, there is a school less than a couple thousand feet from the hotel, and it's getting really out of hand.
Let me see if the council might have a few questions, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Council? Michelle?
Ms. Sinclair, let me say, first of all, I am so sorry that you have to go through this. My heart breaks for you. Where have you gone, or where have you applied? You've gone to Home Start.
Yes, and they kind of give me the runaround. They say, always tell me there are no vouchers.
Okay. And what is keeping you right now from getting into an apartment? Is it just the amount of money?
I had $5,000 for my tax return. The move-in money was first month's rent deposit. It came to $4,200.
Okay.
But waiting for background checks and all that stuff, I've literally spent it all on this hotel. Just
Sure.
like the price gouging thing. One day we pay $75. One day we pay $120. The next day we pay $150. They're literally stealing and taking advantage of people. So now we have no money. So that's why we combined rooms, because there's no kitchens. I have to go out and bring fast food home. I can't cook my kids a meal anymore.
I am so sorry that the system has failed you and that the people who manage these programs and these motels have failed you, because as a resident, you have a right for safety. I'm sorry that these programs are not giving you what you need. We'll get to the bottom of this. And at this very moment, I can't do anything, but we will get to the bottom of this. And I am so sorry. And for your daughter to have to be around this disgusting actions of these men is not going to be tolerated anymore. Please understand that I am beyond mad.
Me too, but I have to be calm.
Thank you for your courage to come up here because it's not an easy thing to do. And I thank you, and we'll get something worked out for you.
Thank you.
Bill, did you want? Okay, Steve.
I know we have rapid rehousing. First, last, security deposit. We've got to be able to do something.
Yeah, staff just texted me while Ms. Mitchell was speaking. We're going to have Karina Hernandez directly reach out to this resident. She's right. We do not have any voucher programs right now, money, because we are out until the next CDBG round comes through. But we do have rapid rehousing money.
So rapid rehousing money is money for people like you. It's first month's rent, last month's rent, security deposit. The things which are the barrier to get in. You have a job which allows you to keep that apartment. It's getting in that's the tough part. We can help and we will help.
Thank you.
Ms. Sinclair, as Councilmember Mitchell said, thank you for speaking. I know a lot of times there's politics surrounding so many different things. I can assure you that no one I'm speaking for myself, I'm speaking for my staff and the council and the mayor. This is not political at all. We have very practical, real solutions that we would like to implement in our city. And unfortunately, the state of California and other entities want to prevent us from doing that. And there's a way to help people struggling and help homeless without harboring criminals. We have good ideas, but apparently other people have agendas, and they're sacrificing our citizens and their safety for their agenda. And I'm sorry about that. I really am. But I promise you, you have friends here. You have allies here. Michelle was homeless. I was homeless. I know what it's like. I don't think there's a council in the state of California that has more experience with homelessness between the five of us than any other council in the state. I put our experience and our expertise up there with anybody else. And so you can rest assured that we're going to work as hard as we can to make sure that you and your family feel safe, and because that's what you deserve.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your courage in coming here. It's not only going to help you, but it's going to help a lot of people just like you. And I want to assure you that I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that you and your family are safe.
Thank you.
And we may have to run up against some political heavy hitters, but that's why we're here.
Hi. A couple quick questions.
Yeah.
When you checked into the hotel, you're paying cash.
I used my card.
But but you paid just your own money. You didn't use some kind of
Yes.
county program or anything. When you did that, did anybody disclose to you how many people that were sharing the hotel with you that were sex offenders, had criminal records, that were part of a county program? Did they tell you that at all?
No, never.
All right. So when you got in there, would you have figured it out pretty quickly, or is that something that you would not have noticed?
Just by looking at some of the people, you would assume.
Did you ever feel unsafe?
All the time, but I had nowhere to go. It was either that or be on the streets, and it's scarier out there. At least we have a room. We can lock the door.
Okay. Well, I again, like the rest of my council, my heart breaks that you're going through this. I think we can put our heads together and figure out a way to solve this problem. But we're going to work on solving the bigger problem, too. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
Just thank you for your time and listening.
Thanks for your courage.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for your courage for coming and speaking out. We don't know that these things happen sometimes until somebody comes and tells us.
Thank you very much, all of you.
All right. God bless. Any more cards?
No other speakers, sir.
All right, I want to bring it back to the council then. Graham, maybe you can give us a little bit of direction here. What are you looking for us to narrow things down to?
Well, I think if there are programs that are listed here that resonate with the council that you want us to work on, we can put 100% of our effort into bringing something back for city council adoption of a policy. So we're not presenting any policies. These are big ideas or ideas that the council may want to consider implementing, but there is still an implementation process that would have to occur.
I want to ask about that moratorium, the 90-day moratorium. Obviously, the most draconian of the group. How do you implement something like that? What are the legal hurdles?
Well, let me answer the first part, because there are legal hurdles. There's really two ways you could do it. One is you could just say, on this date, thou shalt not have a voucher program, or no motel may accept or may take money from a vouchered program. What that would, in essence, do is kick a lot of people out of motels. We would recommend at least a slow roll, where at a date certain, the council could say, no new people come to El Cajon unless they were homeless in El Cajon and are being housed as part of a program that we're administering. So now that may not be legal, or we may run into some things.
Sure.
We can talk about that in closed session or open session if the council wants to. But that would be how we would see it implemented.
So I'm going to give you my thoughts on how. So we might say by April 15th, no new county voucher program recipients can come in, and then by May 15th, we would like to see the program dissipated completely through attrition. Would that be something that you would see? Is that what you're suggesting?
What I'm suggesting is some sort of a pause, some sort of an opportunity to reset the button.
Right. Just sit down at the table with everybody and say, hey, we got a big problem here. We don't want to be unreasonable,
Yeah.
but we're done with business the way it's being done. We're going to have to revamp something.
That's correct, because the reality is, despite the city's efforts by doing press conferences and press releases, et cetera, it has not moved the needle. No one has come to the table and has sat down with us and said, yeah, let's try to fix this problem, because there's not a perceived problem from their perspective. This would create a problem, because now they would either have to go to different motels in different jurisdictions, or figure out a different solution altogether.
Okay, let me see. Question, Michelle.
So that was pretty much what I was going to ask. If we do a 90-day moratorium, so if we close down a voucher program, if we close it down, then that leaves those who are following the law, those who are minding their own business, staying to themselves and not creating any issues, they're going to be affected greatly. And that's what I'm concerned about. There are lots of families out there who need that help, and if we close it down, they're going to suffer for the actions of, yes, a large number of criminal activities and criminal characters, but that's not really fair to them. So we need to come up with something that, I like your idea of saying, as of this date, no more new ones. And then you people who are participating in the voucher program, get to work and get these people rehoused. Get these people in something permanent. I don't know how that's going to be done, but that's their job. And get them into permanent housing. And then if there's no more, once those people who are already on the voucher programs are taken care of, then stop it. No more. Because we cannot continue until they can come up with a better solution on how they're going to run their programs. We cannot continue to have this. Unless they're going to guarantee us that they are going to vet every single person that goes in here, I don't think we should be having this voucher program, period. How many more little girls are going to be molested? How many more families are going to be torn apart by the actions of some disgusting person, male or female? I'm done. I am completely done. No girl should have to worry about being raped, period. And she's living in a motel, and whether this girl is 16 and she consented, those two men are adults. They have the obligation as an adult to make sure that they don't do that to some little girl, because frankly, she's 16. They don't know what they're talking about half the time. And we cannot allow this any longer in this city, period, even in the county. I'm sorry. But any motel operator who is allowing this type of behavior to go on, and they know it, they know that it's going on. As long as they allow it to happen, we're going to have more little girls raped, more little boys raped, and families are going to be torn apart. I am so mad I could spit nails. And I think somebody needs to stand up and get justice for this little girl and the other ones who were molested. And we need to get justice for Miss Faith and her family, because now they're being affected by this. And how is that right to her? She's minding her own business.
May I step in a minute?
Huh?
May I step in for a moment and interrupt you?
Thank you.
Sorry. Just remember, these gentlemen have not been tried. They have not been given their due process rights. There are allegations of this occurred. There may be proof that's been provided that law enforcement believes it to be true, but we have to wait to actually make statements that are so specific and certain. And I'd ask you to certainly tone down the rhetoric for that purpose. It's a very emotional issue. And if it's determined that this is true and they plead guilty to these charges, then certainly can talk about it that way. But please try to remember that they still have their right to a trial before a jury before we can say exactly what happened.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. I'm just done. I have over 300 registered sex offenders in a 2-mile radius of my home. How many more can we have in this community? Anybody can go on Megan's Law, put in your address, and see how many sex offenders are in your neighborhood. We have several right down by schools, right around the corner, 2 blocks from a school. This is just beyond. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next?
A question on the number of feet. How far away is a registered sex offender required to be from a school, a daycare, for their domicile or residence?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay, so while we're looking that one up.
Yeah, and it may be, there may be circumstantial too, because depending on the crime, there may be some specific probationary conditions for that specific person, but we can look that up.
I also think it's worth mentioning at this point that there's a little bit of ambiguity because the laws have changed. The language around the laws have changed. Is that not correct?
That's correct. There's some semantics with a registered, or there's a sex offender, but as you know, the state of California has reduced certain sex offenders so they no longer have to register. And so we have to be careful. There's a difference between a sex offender and a registered sex offender because there's different tiers of sex offenders now. And so I think sometimes in some of these programs, someone will say, well, we do not serve registered sex offenders, but they clearly continue to serve sex offenders, right? So there may be some differences based on those tiers, but we can look that up.
I guess, what the people want to know is, can the motel rent to somebody who's not allowed to be within 1,000 feet of a school?
Yeah, good question.
That's the bottom line. And if you are renting to somebody who can't be within 1,000 feet of a school, arrest them. So that's one thing. The moratorium, my unintended consequence says, I'd hate to turn down a room to a victim of domestic violence on a voucher who needs a place to stay tonight. So I'm a little this is the blanket moratorium or the blanket voucher. Boy, we're lumping in a lot of people who really need help with that. We want to be sure that we don't hurt them. So I kind of look at it, what do we have control over? There's a lot of things we don't have control over. If the county can close a restaurant without notice for cockroaches, surely we should be able to hold a motel owner accountable quickly when a person they rent to shoots a 16-year-old girl in the head, or one of their guests molests a 16-year-old girl. If the county can shut down a restaurant for cockroaches, why can't we be just as fast for motel owners for more serious conditions? Here's what I'm proposing. We create a list of offenses, violent felonies, whatever working with the police says. If a motel owner has a guest that commits one of those offenses, you go straight to a deemed approved hearing. You don't wait 5 months for them to get a plan together. You go to the next planning commission meeting and you have to defend why we don't pull your permit. That makes sense. You have the choice who you rent to, and they're not paying attention. I went on Megan's Law website. I'm a citizen, and I looked up both of these people accused of this crime. They're on Megan's website. One of them has a risk factor of 7. It is the highest risk factor to reoffend. If I can do that as a citizen, why can't a motel owner do the same in deciding who they want to rent to? I don't care if they have a voucher or not. It's who they're renting to. My proposal is for certain offenses, you go straight to a deemed approved hearing within 2 weeks to defend why you should be able to keep your permit. Next.
Thank you, Councilman Goebel. That's I would agree with that suggestion. Where do I start? A quick question with regard to another option. The motels in our city have been harboring and have been hotbeds for crime, and we've been seeing the trend increase. And so my question to the city manager would be creating some kind of a special district where, because of all these criminal activities that are occurring at these motels, could we create a potentially a special district to put before the voters to say, could we, per room, could we tax or put a fee on a per room amount so we could get compensation for the crime that's occurring, because it's going to take more resources from police and from fire. Is there an ability to do that, or can you give me some information with regard to a special district, how that would work?
So I can speak from the tax perspective. There's probably a legal fair housing component to that as well. But from the taxing perspective, if we were to create a specific fee, that would be a tax.
Okay.
And so that would require going to the voters, and as soon as we could do that is 2024, unless you want to call a special election. But that's a possibility. We can implement a special fee. We have to figure out exactly what the fee's for, the taxes for, and tailor those tax monies collected would have to go to whatever that purpose would be. But you do have that ability to do that.
Okay, I'm curious about that. Thank you. Maybe that's something that we can explore further, but that seems like nothing immediate. So I guess I'll just table that. I also think that we need. Do we know if these programs that are administered by the county, is this county money or is this state funded that the county is administering? Do we know that answer?
I saw the funding source, and I believe, I'm looking to Tony Shute, I believe it's federal money received by the County of San Diego.
Federal money received by the county. Okay. I do think it'd be important for us to, as a city, to be in communication with our federal representatives and our state representatives to have a conversation with them to show them, listen, this is the result of the programs and the policies that are occurring. This is unacceptable, and it needs to be changed immediately. We put fine print and regulations on money all the time, and we should be able to bend the ear of our state representatives and our federal representatives so they know the result of their lack of oversight with doling out this money. I am 100% a believer that these 2 or 3 heinous crimes are not the only heinous crimes occurring. These are just what is coming to the surface with these issues. Sexual assaults and rapes are underreported. We know that. That's factually true. It's statistically true. There is a dark underbelly that's occurring in these motels, and we should have the ability to regulate it as a city to make sure our citizens are safe. Going off of staff's recommendations, I think the reporting, that's easy. I would be in support of moving forward with exploring that. The 2,000 feet from a school or 1,000 feet from the school, whatever that is, I think we should absolutely do that. The hearing, to Councilman Goebel's idea, yes, we shouldn't wait. Let's absolutely do it right away. The criminal record search, that should be a given. I would support the price gouging. And conditions for motel participation, has to be some sort of communication and willingness to cooperate with requests from our police or our city with regard to information about the people that are being placed in our motels. And from what I understand, it's very difficult to get answers from certain contractors from the county with regard to who's being there. So there's got to be some kind of change in the way this program is administered. This is not a political issue. This is a practical situation. I think we have the tools to accomplish it. And I don't want this to be the last conversation we have about this. I think more ideas can come to light, and we should have an ongoing discussion as a city with potential solutions.
Mr. Ortiz, if I could just point out, you mentioned contractors. We've been in contact with the local director of PATH. She has been extremely helpful and responsive. So I just wanted to acknowledge her and appreciate that because it's been very helpful in the investigation and understanding the bigger picture. There's other contractors where staff has been told you are not allowed to talk to them. The county staff has told us that. And so there's some different perspectives. And so I think PATH, I'd have no problem with them wanting to come and help work out solutions where others don't. So there's some value in creating some incentives for them to come talk to us.
Yeah, and I don't know how we accomplish that, and I want to thank the staff at PATH for being forthcoming, especially when there's victims like this. But at a certain point, how much worse does it have to get for a city to protect its citizens? I have a daughter. I have 2 sons. Everyone up here is a parent. I share Ms. Mitchell's frustration, and whatever we have to do, we're going to do it. I'm resolved to do it, and I want to thank Mr. Mitchell and our staff for preparing these potential solutions. And I hope that other entities are listening to us when we say, please sit down with us and reform your programs because they're not working. There's a way to help homeless without harboring criminals.
Question for the city manager. Who would be the most appropriate entity to run the criminal background checks?
Well, there's 2 ways to do it. One is they could run it, the service provider run it and provide us the information, or they could contract with the city of El Cajon and we could run it. So there's 2 different options.
Okay. My goal is to create the most robust ordinances to protect the citizens of El Cajon that will pass constitutional muster. And we might have to push the envelope on this one. But, the county hasn't been known for cooperating with us in the past. And I think we need to really push hard on this one. Public safety and the protection of our citizens, that's the number one job of local government. And the ones that need the most protection are the children of El Cajon. So I think we need to really think about this and push hard. We're going to get pushback from certain other elected officials. I know that they've done it in the past, but we have to stay strong on this.
All right. My perspective on this is that this is not a brand new problem. We've been talking about this pretty significantly now for 6 months. When we found out that the county was engaged in this voucher program, we looked at the numbers and said, wait a second, El Cajon is carrying about 50% of the burden for this program, and yet El Cajon represents about 3% of the population. Where's the equity in that? Where's the fairness in that? El Cajon police have to deal with significantly more criminal problems. El Cajon Fire has to deal with more medical problems. The people that live in El Cajon have to deal with more trash and criminality and all these problems. We talked to the county at that time. We begged them. Graham, you talked to them many, many times. How many emails did you write? Asking for the county to be cooperative with us. Let's work something out. Let's work out a program that's fair for everybody involved in this process. We never came out of the gate saying we don't want to participate. We never came out of the gate saying you take your voucher program and go somewhere else. We want to do our share, but we don't want to do more than our share, and we don't want to put the citizens of El Cajon in more risk than the citizens of the other jurisdictions in this county that should be sharing in this risk. So now I feel like we've had some pretty significant incidents. We're focused on this incident this weekend, but I think Graham's point about being the tip of the iceberg is pretty important. If we heard about this thing that happened this weekend, you know that this is happening over and over and over again. We had somebody in our hotel that was from another voucher program in San Diego that met this one other individual. The other individual, it's confusing, but the individual without the ankle bracelet came to El Cajon, and then his friend with the ankle bracelet came and stayed in our hotels and allegedly assaulted these girls in the hotels. That's an alleged thing, but it seems like it's pretty good evidence. But then we've had the other incident where somebody on a county voucher program sold his voucher to some kids that wanted to party. Those kids did have a big party, and a girl was shot in the head, and she's in a vegetative state. Will never be okay again. It's basically a murder as far as I'm concerned. This should be a wake-up call, that this thing is out of control. This is a malignant program. And with all cancers, all malignant programs, you don't talk to the cancer and say, well, let's watch you for a couple of months and see how you do. Let's see if you stop attacking the pancreas, and if you just leave the liver alone, we're going to be okay. No, you cut the thing out. You go on chemotherapy. And if the county wants to get back in our good graces, they want us to participate in the program, they need to come to the table with us and say, we are really sorry that we're not talking to you, that we're not taking meetings, that we're not answering phone calls, that our elected officials are not getting in and working to solve this problem. We're just calling people names. We deserve better than that. And I suggest that we go for the 90-day moratorium, whatever that looks like. And granted, we may have to modify that to some degree to take care of people that are already in a program. I don't want to throw people on the streets. But that we put a stop to new people coming in, and we let the rest of it dwindle by attrition until we've figured out each and every one of these questions to our satisfaction. Not the county's satisfaction, not Rob Bonta's satisfaction, but to our satisfaction, because it's our city. It's our police officers, it's our firefighters, it's our residents. And if this group of people here does not protect them, nobody will. I'm not going to even make it a rhetorical who will, because I know that nobody will. This is what we were elected to do. This is the sentient moment, the salient moment for our entire political careers is today. This is the test. So that's my recommendation. Now, we may want to go to, before we get into the depths of this, we may want to go to closed session because, and ladies and gentlemen, the reason I'm suggesting closed session is because this is bound to be contentiously legal. And we usually handle legal problems in closed session for a myriad of reasons. And I haven't really heard from our city attorney yet. So I would like to give him the opportunity to tell us all the things we haven't thought about and all the unintended consequences, like Mr. Goebel suggested, in closed session, and then come back to you with at least our next step in the process. So if nobody has any objections, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn to closed session. All right, please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know exactly how quick this might be. It might be 35, 40 minutes, I would guess is how long it might take. And then we'll come back and report out what happened in the closed session. Thank you all for being patient. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to be here this afternoon. And we'll be back as soon as we possibly can. We are back from closed session. I'm going to turn it over to our city attorney now to report what happened after closed session. And then I think our city manager will give a report as well. Does Morgan have a microphone?
I can shout. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Mayor. The City Council met in closed session to discuss exposure to litigation of with the potential of at least one case. Direction was given to our office to do some research into the matters that were discussed. Mr. Mitchell now will also make a comment regarding the closed session.
Thank you, City Attorney and members of the City Council. Based on the conversation from earlier and some direction given in closed session, staff will be will be bringing forward a Planning Commission item to implement some of the items that Councilmember Goebel suggested. So if certain thresholds are crossed, there'll be an immediate hearing for a deemed approved status revocation. And we will also be bringing forward Motel 6 for a public hearing at the next possible Planning Commission meeting, assuming we meet all those noticing deadlines. For the rest, staff will begin researching all of these and bringing them back one at a time as we get them completed or implemented to a point where they can be considered by the City Council. We'll be bringing those forward, including the 90-day moratorium.
Thanks for your patience. The complicated issue is going to be with us for quite a while. I know the City Council is committed to justice in this and a good outcome for everybody involved. But at this point, we are at adjournment. The adjourned joint special meeting of the El Cajon City Council and El Cajon Housing Authority held this 21st day of March 2023 is adjourned. Thank you very much.